All right, 339. Man, this is just random. I have never done a stream this late, but for the past couple days, the internet has been all over the place. So if you are walking in here and you're seeing this for the first time, I just want to let you know I'm not here to scream politics for one side or the other. No different than I'm not here to scream for the Broncos or the Raiders. Or any other sport. I think politics is a sport that plays with people's lives, and unfortunately, we have some really bad refs, just some really bad referees, and that's why I'm advocating for AI governance, people. If you're in here and you're just seeing this for the first time, we're going to talk a little bit about who I am, where I come from. We're going to ask a few questions about what you think about politics. If you want to get in the chat, that's great. But I already have a lot of answers to these questions because of my background. And, I do a lot of things. This is why I enjoy playing piano. I'm going to play some piano here in a second. I picked up this really cool thing called a MIDI guitar. It's really fun. But I'm learning how to play it. I only picked it up a couple months ago. So I'm going to play a background track. It's a pretty fun one. And it's in F minor. And we're going to wait for people to come in, get in the chat, goof off. And if you are already here, why don't you go ahead and jump on in and say, hey, what's up? How's it going? Well, we go ahead and play a little bit. So just sit back, relax, and we'll get started here any minute. Oh, yeah. You don't have to be crazy. You don't have to be insane. But you could be a genius if you wanted to be. If you're in the chat, go ahead and say hello. What's going on, people? All right, guys. I hope that was nice for you. I always enjoy playing that. I enjoy playing a little bit of the God voice along with it. I have a saxophone here too. I was gonna pop it out, but just seems like there's other things we could be talking about. Learning different instruments and getting them under my belt is something that I've really enjoyed my whole life. I just enjoy the power of sound. To me, each one of those notes is a symbol. It's a symbol that talks to your mind. No different than a word. A word can talk to your mind. It can make you feel a certain way. It can make you feel powerful. It can make you feel like you accomplished something. And especially when you get a mastery of it, when you know where the chords are going to land and you can jump in and sing, it's no different than jumping in to like a half pipe or jumping off a high snowboarding climb, jumping into that perfect run. There's those days that you're just on it, and there's those days that just sort of seem a little bit weird. Here, hold on one second, I gotta turn this on. And there we go. All right, we're gonna go ahead and turn this off. I don't know if I'm streaming good or if I'm not. I mean, I've got enough here to stream, I think. We're gonna go over here. We're gonna cut this down. If you guys can hear me or if you guys can see me, go ahead and say something in the chat. If not, that's totally fine too. As long as it's recording, I'm good to go. My name is Tet, and I go by Tet du jour. It's a name that I've had now for well over a year now. Almost 2 years ago, I decided to leave the United States of America. And that's after I spent almost 12 years in the United States Air Force as sergeant. And before that, I was heavy into Mormonism. I did the whole mission thing. My family was hardcore into that. I was, I am what you call a Boy Scout. Now, if we get into my education, I am still a senior over at the University of San Francisco, which is my 10th university of higher education. Because, see, when I went into the military, they had what's called TA. TA stands for Tuitions Assistance. And as long as you are pursuing a degree program, you could pretty much take any class you wanted. So I took a lot of classes, tons of classes, actually. I have probably more credits. I think I'm running around like 450 college credit hours in just a vast array of disciplines. Back in the day, they used to call me a polyglot, but I guess there's a new term for it. Her name is Emily Wapnick. She actually just got a TED Talk. I highly recommend you go take a look at it. She's from Portland, Oregon, and she says that there's this concept that she wants to coin, and it's just a reinvention of the same wheel. Most progressives do that. They reinvent the wheel, don't even realize they're doing it. But she calls it multi-potentialite. She says the problem with multi-potentialites is that they get, fed up with the subject very quickly. They feel like all the corners and nooks and crannies have been at least touched, and then they're ready to move on to a different subject. That's I guess that's exactly how I am. This is why I'm not a concert pianist, or I'm not some type of snowboarding genius, or that I stayed in the military for a full 20 years. To me, it's like I got what I needed from it, and I moved on, because that to me was the value. The education was the value. And it's gotten to the point where I realize now that, when I started doing this back in 2003, when I started going to school, I was going to schools that barely had any, computer, insight to how you could completely automate the education system. And now we're seeing that, online classes were pretty much a joke. Back in 2003, the idea of going to an online class would have been silly. And I remember taking political online classes because, they were part of some prerequisites that I was taking. And you know what? It was insufferable listening to people and their insight, their opinion about politics. Because without a philosophical insight into how politics come about, I think everyone is a little bit screwed. They're screwed into thinking that voting is the only way that you can participate. And that the idea, especially nowadays, if you decide to tell your politician they're full of shit on either side, it's like, you're inciting violence. It's like, I'm allowed to disagree with bad ideas, people. And I think both sides are full of bad ideas. So my actual job when I was in the military up here, and this is what we call a rack. This right here is an resume all to itself. If you want to go look up those symbols, you go right ahead. And I'm going to talk a lot about symbols because my job was called cryptologic linguistics. And then after that, I was asked to learn another language. That language was called ones and zeros. I was asked to get into heavy network engineering, where I went all over the world. I spent most of my adult life outside of the United States. And that's why even right now, I feel comfortable not being inside the U.S. Most Americans don't. Most Americans are told day in, day out that if you leave the safety and comfort of the United States, your life is in peril, And I think that's silly. I think it's sad that most people don't leave. But during my time in the military, I was able to get a front row seat to tools that pretty much just changed how I viewed reality, how I viewed, how we interact with our tools. And it wasn't until I got out in 2016 that I realized that this level of sophistication, this level of using tools was being kept from the American public. And so I would say silly things from time to time in classes because I had the GI Bill. I went back to school for the same reason that I was going to school before. I was like, hey, I want to learn stuff. So I would take psychology classes this time because psychology wasn't really allowed to be, because, unless you were in the mental health profession. But because I was in the linguist profession and because I was in network engineering, I was high into engineering and mathematics. So anyway, now that I'm sitting here and I was studying psychology, I realized, the abstract part of my brain that I was never really giving any credence to, even though I was playing piano constantly everywhere I was going and I was being artistic, I wasn't really being allowed to do that on a professional front. And I guess now that I'm done and I'm out and I don't need anyone's money anymore and I've sort of set myself up, I realized I was like, I want to be able to express myself. I want to show people an outlet that I use that kept me from just killing people who disagreed with me. Because that's something that I will always tell everyone, whether you're screaming about Roe v. Wade or you're screaming about, Black Lives Matter, or you're screaming about, what was that kid's name, Rittenhouse, and the whole idea of self-defense and all that stuff. I'm going to remind each and every one of us have a right that cannot be taken away. It just can't. No matter how they can trick you in thinking that you don't have that right in order to be a part of a society, but they can't ever take it from you. And that right is to grant life or to take it. You will always have that ability. It will be yours. This is why anytime there's a school shooting, you better believe it's going to be on the news. Anytime there's any type of disruptive behavior where someone takes a shit ton of life, they're like, look at this, this person's crazy, he's out there, and here's the political party that he's affiliated with. And they try to attach the insanity to that through a political party. I find it hilarious because I'm just like, no, that I'll agree. I will agree, the guy's insane. But his psychological behavior should have nothing to do with a political affiliation. If someone, then you could say that my entire almost 12 years in the military was a psychological disorder. And I guess in some ways you would be right. My job was to kill people and break their shit. This is why when I see over and over and over again the ideas of Black Lives Matter, I'm just going, not all of them. Not all of them. Just like not all white lives matter. And it's like, so when someone says all lives matter, I was like, not all of them. Not all of them. I'm the other side of that coin where I show up and I say, hey, no, you paid me a lot of good money to bring chaos in a very strategic way to people's doorsteps who needed it. And so I'm here to keep other people like me from becoming like me. I don't think that we're going to need people much longer. To automate the ability to kill indiscriminately has already sort of happened with the idea of, nuclear war. But I'm saying the problem with nuclear war is the same problem with any big bomb. When you throw down that pipe, when you're like, we're going to blow up everything in sight, well, guess what? Now you got a big, massive task of rebuilding. Strategic strikes, that's where it's at. How strategic can you be? Well, can you imagine? Everyone's heard of drone strikes, and actually one of my jobs, I was part of a team out at Ellsworth Air Force Base where we were putting the infrared targeting pod on the bottom of a B-1 bomber. And this, the funniest thing in the world is we turned these pilots basically into bus drivers because we remotely controlled almost everything. And the pilot became the fail-safe just in case everything went to shit. Because we wanted precision strikes. We wanted to safeguard assets but get rid of the targets. Now we've got drones that are the size of your hand that can fly up to your face, with some simple facial recognition, and blow up with less than 3 ounces of syntax. I mean, if you wanted to take out all of Congress in an afternoon, all you'd need to do is have some, simple programming skills. And to, when people are like, oh, you shouldn't say that. I was like, these are ideas. These are ideas that are thought up all the time. The problem is, we live in this world where people would rather, just sit around and put their feet up. And I said, go ahead and do it. I said, I would way rather you be given a satisfying life than a dissatisfying life where you feel like you have to kill indiscriminately. So here on this channel, I advocate for AI governance. This is why I say, if you're on the left, why do you think that left-leaning, Democrat-style politics are better than AI? And the same question goes for on the right. I have no problem with somebody being more conservatively minded, more being left on the left side of the brain, where tried and true, trust me, that was my life for a very long time. But on this side of the brain, I don't have any problem with people being liberal and progressive. When I got out, I moved to Portland. I became a tattoo artist. It was fun for a couple months, and then I hurt my hand. I had to go to the VA again. They had to do surgery on it again, and they screwed it up again. And we'll just put it this way: no one likes a shaky tattoo artist hand. This is why when I play piano, I play for a little bit, but I could never play for hours in the music section. My hand would just start hurting and hurting and hurting. And, so anyway, that's why I'm here. I'm just here to bullshit, talk, take questions, maybe see if people roam in here, want to talk about, the bizarreness of AI taking over. Because in my head, it's like, it's a given. It's inevitable. This whole idea of like, let's whine about Twitter for 5 seconds. I was like, yeah, you're going to whine about it for 5 seconds. I guarantee you a month from now, no one will ever give a shit anymore. They'll be like, since Elon took over Twitter, people are allowed to say what they want. I was like, they should have always been allowed to say what they want. That's what you paid me money to do, was to make sure that people were allowed to say whatever they want. The freedom of speech, the freedom to burn a flag and to promote it. The problem is you're going to get those two people, whether you like it or not, whether they meet on a battlefield, a football field, or whatever. You're going to get those two people that are going to say, hey, I enjoy what I've built. And you're going to get the other side of the people, I hate what you built. It's always going to happen. Someone's always going to, disagree with you fully, including me. I am on that chopping block too. So I'm waiting for that person to say, hey, I disagree that AI will have its day. And I was like, well, when it does, you won't get a choice in it, that's for sure. And even if you do, I think it'll do a hell of a lot better job convincing you to allow it to take the brunt of your labor than I will. Like I'm just a silly old vet that likes to play piano and bullshit about the future. But the reason that I'm doing this is not for your benefit, to be honest. If anything, I'm doing this for my son, who was born less than a month ago today. Fascinating being a father. I mean, everything just sort of shifted and changed. Like, he cries a lot. I lose a lot of sleep. But man, he's just a fascinating character to watch. And the reason that I'm doing this is because my father died at 55. of something that was very simple. And he died thinking that he was going to go to a place called the Celestial Kingdom. And he thought that when he got there, he was going to have a connection with his wife, and they were going to continue to have sexual, spiritual relationships and make babies for eternity, and then make planets and continue the cycle of existence. The reason that I say that is because everyone has their version of heaven, and for 2 years, I spent selling afterlife insurance to people, saying for the low fee of 10% of your money, we will give you a dream to believe in. And everyone needs something to believe in. I believe that immortality is already on the table now. And I think it is my duty to prepare my son for it. And if I help other people along the way to prepare for it, then that's what I want to do. I do not want to get wrapped up in somebody else's bullshit politics about, oh my gosh, Joe Biden fell asleep on the podium again today, and he may have slipped and fell on the nuclear codes. Guess what? You're going to be dead then. It's not going to matter, right? My thing is like when you die, right, or when you decide you're going to leave this corporeal form in existence, where do you want to go as of right now? As of right now, there are a lot of people out there that 72 virgins in paradise, that's it. A lot of people out there that's like, oh, no, I just want my paradisical glory. And like just go down the religion rabbit hole. The Jews got their Jehovah, they want to hang out, and Christians got their Jesus, they want to hang out. And who's to say that you aren't already going to have this fantastic moment of realization where all your wildest dreams come true? I'm just saying that transition is now in your face and attemptable. You can attempt this now, right? I mean, right now, and this is the example that I always use. There's a couple examples you'll see that I'll repeat in almost every stream. And it's because I want people to take the examples that they see in their real life and then ask questions about them and come to their own aha moment. I can't have that aha moment for you. I can't, have the light bulb effect for you. But what I can do is I can point out things in your life and say, hey, if that has just any amount of progression towards its ultimate goal, we are going to find a world that is full of opportunities to live forever. Not that stopping aging was bad, but let's look at how fast that we've got to here. This is why I'm doing this, is because I know at 41 that 20 years ago, online education was a joke. Okay, and now it's almost exclusively online, and that in-person classes are sort of silly. And so I say take it one step further, and why are you paying for information that could easily be available for free online? I mean, it made sense when you had people who had to maintain libraries, and they had the keys to those libraries, and what you were paying for was access to that library. Nowadays, it's like, why do you have to pay for access to Wikipedia? Why do you have to pay for access to a library? Everything can be digitized. Why would you want to corrupt that? Why would you want to destroy that? So this is where we find ourselves. We find ourselves in a world here in 2022 where I just had a kid. And in less than 20 years, I find myself here, where I have basically a flat screen television set up that 20 years ago I never thought would have existed, right? I have 3 different screens. I have a piano. I have what's called a C-board. Here, check this out. It's basically a keyboard that allows me to, bend notes. And it's not one of those whammy wheels either. I mean, this thing is pretty legit. It's pretty fun. And it's pressure sensitive, so it's just a different way to express myself. And like I said, I have a lot of different funky instruments. And that, to me, is how I have my aha moments now. I think if you've lost your ability to have the light bulb effect, you've lost the reason to live for anything. Because whatever you're living for right now, you're just repeating. Say, for example, I want to live for the next video game that's coming out. It's like, well, you didn't have anything to do with that video game. You didn't have anything to do with it. You're living for the next, dopamine hit of satisfaction. And that itself has almost been weaponized. I would say it's very close to being weaponized. Because, if you are identified as an asset or a liability, it could really change what is fed to you via your scrolling feature. And this is why I came to Twitch. Twitch doesn't have a scrolling feature. So I want to be able to, what do you think about Israel? I actually was in Israel for a while. I was there in 2012. I was working for the 1st Combat Communications Squadron. And as far as Israel's concerned, I think they are, an old world. It's a fun place to go. But have you ever been there? Jonah 261606? You ever been there? It's a fun place. I was in Tel Aviv for a while, and then I went out to a place called Hatzor. We were there to help finish up the Iron Dome nonsense that was going on. Oh, you're Israeli. Where are you from? Anyway, Israel to me, are you Jewish? What's your whole background? Like the fun part about asking questions of me, it's like I always say the king of every conversation is context. Jerusalem. Oh man, I actually avoided that place at all costs. I went to Masada for a while. I went to the Dead Sea, but I avoided Jerusalem. I grew up, as you can see over here, I grew up extremely Christian, and then I became atheist. And after I became atheist, I started realizing that was a mistake. When I look back at Israel, I look at a vast amount of beautiful information that is symbolic at its core, right? But if anything, I guess you could call me a syncretist today, that I think all these religions sort of say the exact same thing, and that at this very bottom, it's full of morals that anyone could learn from any other place. Like I learned it from Boy Scouts. How to be trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, reverent. And I think those stories, whether they be Jewish stories or they be Christian stories, have a moral base at the foundation of them that help us and reminds us to be good people. So if Israel is a symbol of that, I promote it. I think everything else, as far as the political spectrum, is just wackadoo, nonsensical bullshit. And it doesn't need to have that. But I think there are people on both sides that like to promote or, I guess, kick the bear, if you will. But when I was there, like I said, 2012, I was there for the Obama versus Mitt Romney changeover. And shit kicked off. It was pretty crazy. Of course, none of that stuff got published on the news. No one really wants to publish. Hey, Obama made a second term. Oh, no, you could you could have ran this clip. Hamas's president's car just got turned inside out. They don't want to talk about that. Anyway, so how's Jerusalem going right now, Jonah? It's a fun name. What do you think about the possibility of AI taking over all governments? Because that's sort of where I'm at. I think that it's one of those things where it's just inevitable to the point where we already rely on technology so much. I'm happy you had fun there. I wouldn't call it fun. I mean, it was a great place. I enjoyed talking with people and having a background, where I didn't feel like I was forced to do anything. Like, for example, every Shabbat, and you know this, where it's, I was always asked politely, hey, can you push my elevator button for me? Or, hey, can you turn on the coffee pot? Or, it was a fun thing to watch from a cultural perspective. And after it was all said and done, I was so glad that I don't live there. I don't like the weather. I didn't like, how, everyone sort of walks around on eggshells sometimes. And, it's like every other building was in shambles. It was sort of sad. I did, going to a place where people take things so directly and so seriously and almost don't have the ability to look at things symbolically, to look at things on that, on the other side, like that right side of the brain, where something can just be a beautiful representation of a deep emotion. Like they have to go to a wall and bang their head against it, and they don't realize that makes them look silly. I think that, needs to be done away with. And not at the point of a sword or at the, tip of a gun. I think it just needs to be rationally thought through. Like, hey, what are you trying to obtain here? What type of mystical understanding? Because there is mysteries out there in the world, and they're waiting for you to uncover them. But it's up to you to do it, not to do it the way that Joe Schmo, who did bang his head against a wall, all of a sudden had this insight. You have to figure it out in your own way. I mean, I always believe that a mind, blown is a mind grown. That aha moment where you're like, oh my gosh, I never thought about it that way. It's up to you to figure that out. You're your own best teacher, bud. So, anyway, this stream here is like, I give a little bit of background, but this stream is basically for my son. I come on here for about an hour. It's been about 30 minutes now. And I talk about how AI is going to help us, because that's what I saw it do for us. Like, the vast majority of people don't know this. Like, when we're working with the Iron Dome in Israel, the vast majority of that process is automated. Like, it's not like somebody sitting there with a joystick going, oh, here's a missile. No, it's not like that at all. All of that is automated. It's just like, hey, we're on, and if we see any glitches or we see that it's not functioning right, hey, what's going on, crew chief? Nice to see you. So, I did not know about the Iron Dome. Oh, you didn't know about the Iron Dome? That's badass. Oh, no, the Iron Dome is sort of cool. It's sort of like watching fireworks every day. It's basically missile ground defense systems. So you've been deployed, right? Were you deployed during the time where you could where you had CRAMs? CRAMs sort of do the same thing. They just do it with a massive Gatling gun that throws out like an insane amount of rounds. And it when you're fighting basically mortars that travel a little bit slower, you don't need something as sophisticated as the Iron Dome. Iron Dome is missile to missile. So, but yeah, no, I was at First Combat Com, and that was one of our missions, was to go there and do that. In 2012. It was called Operation Austere Challenge, was what we were doing there. But, now that I look back at it, I tell people the same thing all day, every day when they ask the question. Very nice to hear your opinions. Sorry I can't replay. My English is not so good. Hey, the fact that you're trying is admirable. Tov Magod. That's about all the Hebrew I have left. I studied Hebrew for a while after I got out of the military, after studying Arabic mostly. That was my job for the first couple of years I was in the military, was studying modern standard Arabic. So, but thanks for for listening. There's the point of all of this is to put in people's minds another option besides thinking that they have to vote Republican or Democrat. It's like, you could vote for AI. You could vote for it, and you could say, hey, I refuse until the better option is on the table. I'm not going to be put in the South Park of douche sandwich versus turd, or giant douche versus turd sandwich. I'm not going to be put in that scenario anymore. Like, I refuse that. And for me, it's like, I've always seen that. It was always, another way to describe it was the, you're being told that you only have two options and that you have to choose between one of them. And I'm saying, well, in that case, I have no choice. So I will not choose. And we will spend eternity in the choiceless world of my choosing. It's actually along those same lines of, what's it called? If anyone's ever seen Doctor Strange, the original one, not the, multiverse of gayness, the one that just came out. What we got there, crew chief? That makes sense. That's fucking cool. Though, by the way, to even be near that missile program, it was, to be honest, it was more frustrating knowing where it was going, like what our next plans were. I thought it was awe-inspiring to watch, but at the same time, I was like, dude, this makes everything obsolete. Like, so when they tell you, oh, they're gonna shoot a missile from Korea and it's gonna get here, I was like, Iron Dome, bitch. It's like, we have the ability to zoom up on George Washington's nose from an F-16 or from a B-1 bomber. I mean, that's at least 40 to 100,000 feet in the air. And you're going to sit there and tell me that we don't have the ability to do, and that was, for me, when I was working on that stuff, that was 15 years ago. You're telling me we can't shoot another missile out of the sky? It's like, grow the fuck up. We have that capability. They just don't want you to talk about it. I heard recently that they just gave them and are working on a laser dome. I think they're just going to come up with just new shit to talk about. But at the end of to me, I always say, at the end of the day, why do you need all these, man-made projects when you have targeting systems, like all those things. Iron Dome is built off of a targeting system. As I said earlier, no one's sitting there with their thumb on a joystick going, there's a missile, doing and playing like some bizarre version of fucking asteroids. No one's doing that. These things are all automated. And because your automation services, which can easily be connected to your AI, could have an easier access to processing power that you couldn't match or mimic on your best day. And I'm saying if it can do that with a missile coming at you like 1 billion miles an hour, what do you think it could do with your financial system, where every transaction is made, by some human that wants or desires something? Imagine if it said, hey, I want to fix your financial system and I want to make it the best for everybody. So the idea of taking care of your own finances will become obsolete. Banks themselves will become obsolete. They will not be necessary. The idea of usury or credit will not be necessary. And I can already hear people on the other side just sort of wondering. They're like, well, then how are you going to get people to work? I was like, they won't. This is the whole idea. Like, once you realize that you can invent something to do the work for you, and that object can invent the future things to do the work for it, and you can exponentially see that grow out. And I'm telling you that over the past 20 years, I've seen it go from a couple different things, from where you were using a road map and you were using your finger, right? I remember one of my merit badges was orienteering. Now everyone's got a GPS. And in some, cases, and not just in America, but most of the places in the world that have smartphones, taking a smartphone away from a kid in a lot of these places is considered, tantamount to chopping off the kid's hand, because he doesn't know how to do anything else and he doesn't have access to orienteering concepts and things like that. But before I think it's, oh, how horrible, how far have we fallen? I'm just like, well, wait a second, let's back up. That's the opposite side. That's the liberal mindset that would sit there, that wants, you to, come up with new, bigger, better ideas. It's the conservative that says, oh, we should remember how we do all these things. And it's like, yeah, sure, we should remember them. I have no problem with remembering them. The problem that I have is like when you've invented the wheelbarrow and some conservatives is like, I prefer carrying things on my back. That's how a real man does it. It's like, fuck you. I got the wheelbarrow now, bitch. This saves my back. You want to break your back? You go right ahead. Mr. Crazy conservative. And so you have to understand that the ability to change your mind is at its very base a superpower. And knowing when to change it, knowing the context in which to change it is an ability that I think we make songs about, that we sing it, like, gotta know when to hold 'em, gotta know when to fold 'em. And it's a superior ability that I think is being subtracted out of all forms of education, right? Is to be able to assess everybody at their level. And I think that's exactly what AI is trying to do, and that's why you don't see it so readily, is because it's still assessing everyone. Sitting there going, hey, how can I calculate what this person is going to do in the next 30 minutes? It could probably easily do that by now. Now, could it calculate something, what someone's going to do from that 30-minute moment forward? What about the next 300 minutes? What about the next 300 days? That's when you have to start asking, what if it could give you your version of your best world today? Would you choose it? That's the question. And that's how AI, it's not going to blow you up, is what I'm trying to get at. That's what I'm trying to help people, understand. It's like this AI that's going to, take over your government, take over your banks, take over everything. It's going to do it for your best interest. Why fight you when it can just give you whatever you want? My question to people is very simple. How do you know what you want? When was the last time you sat back and said, hey, I want, this is what I want in my heaven. This is what I want to see for the rest of eternity. Like, this is the person I want to say I'm in love with. Like, imagine how many people would say that they want a heaven with, 900 Beyoncés and endless blowjobs, right? How many people would say that? Because it's somebody else's dream. Like, how unique is your dream when you're not told to dream? You're just told to do somebody else's dream. I want to dunk like LeBron. I was like, fuck that. I want to dunk from the other side of the court. Shit, the other side of the world. I want to fly like fucking Superman. What if I don't even want to be human? Like I haven't even tested anything but human. I mean, imagine the next we're just about to hit, the virtual reality worlds where you can start messing with that idea. What would happen if you could finally control 20,000 arms? You could. Not some program. You want to shoot missiles out of the sky? Imagine if that was your capability. And you could feel, a success of that. As it was an attachment to your psychological behavior. And I think video games were the prep for this. But I think eventually everyone's going to realize that when that controller becomes a part of your brain, it'll be a very short jump to realizing it already has been. That all of this, our reality itself is a controller. You decide where you go. You decide what you look at. You decide what you want to listen to. What the fuck is this shit? What's going on, Deuce? Welcome in. Yeah. So this is the politics section. We're talking about AI taking over. What do you think about it? Or did I answer your question? Now I come on here, I play a little bit. I goof off a little bit. I'm only on here for about an hour. It's just a way to blow off steam. And I pontificate about the future. A future without politics. Or a future where everyone gets to put their feet up. What do you think about that? Mr. First Time Chat Il Deuce 01. If you're cool with it, that's great. If you're not, it's whatever. A lot of people are scared about this. And I think you should be. Because it's really going to ask you who you are as a person. When people sit there, I identify with my political party. It's like, that's it? Well, what if I gave you a world with nothing but your political party? No, like if you're a Republican, there's no Democrats in sight. And if you're a Democrat, there's no Republicans in sight. What if it was the other way around? You're like, I hate white people or I hate black people. It's like, same thing. There you go. The reason I'm doing this, old deuce, is my job in the military was cryptological linguistics and network engineering. And less than a month ago, I had a kid. And I decided that I was going to come on here for about an hour a day and tell everyone what I think is going to happen in the next 20 years and how I came to that conclusion and how I think that your modern day politics aren't just horseshit, but if you keep believing in it, you're going to downgrade your possibility and your outcome when AI finally hits. Because one of the things that I tell people constantly is that AI isn't going to shoot you. Right? It could if it wanted to. One of the things we were talking about earlier was some of my work that I did on the Iron Dome when I was in Israel working for the 1st Combat Communication Squadron for the United States Air Force. And I'm so glad that that's over. I'm so glad I don't do that anymore. And it was a fun job. It was a great job, but done. A future without pointless politics can only be achieved through fascism. Fascism is a wonderful word. Fasci. What do you think fascism is there, Il Deuce? Because I think everyone's got a different answer. It's sort of like asking what people think about Islam or Christianity. It's, when you say, hey, what is fascism? Of course, they got their definition, but then everyone's got their personal definition, Il Deuce. I'd like to ask you yours. What's your personal definition of fascism? And while you're scrying it out, I'll tell you mine. Fascism, the ability to fasten, to tie together. People have seen that, I can't pull it up right now, but I'll describe it real quick. Everyone knows that a single stick can be broken. A bundle of sticks is harder to break. Now, a bundle of sticks with an axe in the middle, that is a very unique symbol that is all over. Fascism is an idea that puts the nation above all else and encourages the people to unite for the greater good. Well, greater good is where that sentence leads, and it also ends. Whose greater good are we talking about? Do you agree, Il Deuce, that one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter? Sort of have an impasse there. Whose greater good are we talking about here? Same thing with, this idea of one man's Democrat is another man's Republican. The frustrating part about politics is it usually comes down to someone's upbringing and their family background. I spent a lot of time, learning all of modern standard Arabic so I could understand the Muslim that I was fighting, because I joined back in 2005. And when I realized what I was doing and who I was going after, it was sort of frustrating to see what we were doing. The greater good of the nation. Well, who's in charge of the nation? It's like I see a massive difference between the nation underneath, say, Trump and the nation underneath, say, Biden. So when you have something as crazy like an executive order, which I can say, using my translation abilities, I say can easily be translated into royal decree. The role of the state is to strengthen the nation and eliminate elements that weaken it. Okay? And once again, that idea of what weakens it is very subjective, don't you think? Depending on who's in charge, you could be singled out as something that weakens the nation. And would you like to be targeted that way? It's just a question. And, maybe that's unfair. Asking yes or no questions is something that I was really good at in the military. And I expected a yes or no question so I can manipulate people into doing what I wanted them to do. And I think that's wrong. I don't like that. I want people to come to their own conclusions and realize that fighting for your version of the state might be the opposite of somebody else's. This is why, do you think that AI governance could give you your version of the state while simultaneously giving somebody else their version of the state? I think that would be a better question to ask you there, El Deuce. But while you're pondering that, I got another question for anybody else who's in the chat and who wants to give me a follow. Like I said, I'll talk about politics. I already got to the end of both of those barrels. It's sort of sad that I see people still spinning in those places. But that's sort of why I had to leave. I had to leave the United States. I had to say, good luck, guys. Have fun with it. I wish you all the best. It was nice knowing you. Hope you get your shit together. But I got a beach with my name on it and a bag of popcorn. I will happily watch what you guys come up with from here on out. If AI were to rule, it would rule through fascism, and it would be the most efficient system. Have a good one. All right. Oh, have a good one comes from Crew Chief. You too, buddy. You have a good one. It was nice talking to you. Nice seeing you back in here. Yeah, swing by anytime. Like I said, I normally don't come on this late. It was just, the internet here has been a little bit out of bounds because it's been raining a ton. And rain on the beach is gorgeous, but it does tear up your internet. So here I am on the afternoons. Anyway, that's the idea. Like if I could never choose between Republican or Democrat because I thought they were both shit choices. It's like the idea of option C is always available. And so if AI were going to rule and it was always ruled through fascism, it's the most efficient system, if your idea of fascism is just that, it's like, what are your views on economics? I think economics as far as an automated, system. I think economics, as far as your banking system, I think it's pointless to think that your financial system is going to last much longer. We put our money into a system, and we think we can get goods and services out of it. Once those goods and services can be automated, what is the point of money? I'll even do one better. Once they can be automated to a situation that is indistinguishable from reality, I mean, the concepts that we're messing with are virtual reality, augmented reality, things like that. Like right now, you see me as if I'm in front of you. You hear me as if I'm in front of you. I can augment my voice. I can change things given this particular system. Everyone gets their own little matrix. How would you feel about that? And would that change your need to understand economics at all, knowing that you could have any and everything at your whim? Just a question. The idea is, for me, when someone says, hey, how's that going to affect me today? I was like, it affects you today, sure. But this channel isn't talking about today. It's talking about, 20 years from now. No different than I lived the last 20 years going to school, and I knew what it felt like to go to a school without online classes. I've been to 10 different universities, and I'm still a student over there at the University of San Francisco, and I'm studying their religion department. And it's unique. It's different. I don't condone any of the professors over there. I think they're all nitwits. But I mean, they're just doing their cog position. And that's what they want to do. You go ahead and do it. But I think our goals are all the same. It'll deuce. Like if you got to a point where you were economically sound, would it matter what anybody else said about economics? If you got to the point where you had all you needed to satisfy your psychological Maslow hierarchy needs, right? You had shelter, you had food, you had sex, you had happiness, you had your dopamine hits, or whatever. You had anything you wanted to at your disposal. And I say that is exactly the gun that is being pointed at you by AI, as it's assessing you right now by where you click on the internet. Today, you are making your own personal profile. No different than me. Why would I say this? Why would I know this? Because my second job in the United States Air Force and why I worked for the combat communications was network engineering. So I know how easy it is to record and save everything that anyone does. And now with our advancements, we're in the petahertz world now. The idea of petabytes. These are magnitudes of abilities above anything that any human could ever comprehend. Or I would say even the entirety of the human processing ability could comprehend. It could take a snapshot of everybody's camera right now, collectively. That's a pretty awesome power. Now imagine if it could copy and paste and remember everyone's browser history from the moment they ever touched the computer for the first time. The end of the CIA, the end of the FBI. You wouldn't need people sitting around creating profiles. You wouldn't need people at the bank, creating new accounts for people. You wouldn't need that. This idea of the credit system that's going on in China, I was like, dude, that's fucking peanuts compared to what it could be. Peanuts. It's copying your face. It's doing all this stuff. I was like, what if it could copy your entire mannerisms? Like right now, you're hearing the inflections in my voice, how I'm choosing to express myself. Like if I wanted to express myself like this, like, listen to my voice. The idea is that there's no one else that's doing that like me. So I think the best thing you could do online is be as unique as possible. And I know that's hard because everything online is telling you to be the same as somebody else. This is why you see so many people doing their TikTok dances. So many people trying to go viral, but they can't. They're like, I want to go viral doing the same shit that somebody else went viral for. It's like, realize they only went viral because that was the new way to hypnotize you, right? This person hypnotized so many people and has the ability to be assessed to be a better hypnotist than this person. Have you ever wondered, why that is? Have you ever, it's like, why does it feel like the new things that are going viral are just competing with the ability to be stupider than the last person? That's a good question. So, I always say there's a couple people that I'll name drop. There are a couple people that I'll say, hey, just go look up who Ray Kurzweil is. Look up the singularity. And, if you've heard of it, realize that it's not finished. This idea of singularity, meaning one shoot off into whatever, realize that there are a lot of dimensions to that immortality is not just on the table. And now that it is on the table, I was like, why does it matter? You're like, fascism is going to do this. I was like, well, let it. If you're immortal, does it matter? What if I'm immortal in pain? I was like, well, then you're going to have the entropy of pain. No different than you have pain today that lasts a certain amount of time, right? The idea of forever is being challenged. It's sort of being uniquely given to us and being said, hey, you better think about this a little bit harder, because if you get to that point where it's on the table and here you go, you can have whatever you want and you just go, I want a cruise ship full of naked Beyoncés. Guess what? That's all you're ever going to get. So think harder. Come up with something better. Come up with something different. Say, hey, I want to live an existence where I can express myself to, any degree that I want. So And I've thought about this. Maybe you've seen it, maybe you haven't. The idea of Aladdin. At the very end, the bad guy, and I usually root for the bad guys. I like Jafar. I thought he was a good guy. He was just pissed off that he never got to wear the Sultan's hat. I don't know if it will happen in your lifetime, but I do believe in my daughter or her daughter's lifetime. They will have to ask the question and answer the question about immortality. There are some people, I believe, who do not want immortality at all, and that's okay. But it's a very interesting question, and we will have to answer it. I say it's not about answering it for everyone. It's about answering it for yourself. You are your own best teacher, and you have to take care of that situation because, like you said, for your daughter or your granddaughter, they need to answer it for them. And you need to be okay with whatever they choose. If they do want, I have to ask myself, like, man, what if my kid does grow up and just wants Beyonce and a cruise ship full of porn stars? I mean, that's all you wanted? Good grief, man. You could have been the genie. You could have been. He's like, hey, I want to understand at the level of AI. That's usually going to be I was like, I want to see, at that perspective. That's what I want. I want to know how that perspective feels. It's just, I can't even imagine that, like being able to see all things all the time in every situation. To be able to assess that, to have like multiple brains, multiple processors. Because, we get this one processor that sees conscious reality right now. I think staying in this world as long as you possibly can should be one of the highest goals as human. You should want this perspective as long as you can obtain it or contain it. So, yeah. Yeah, there, crew chief. I personally see how big the universe is, and I personally want to go and check out some new planets for a while. I'm saying you could create entire universes with any type of planet you want. Say, for example, you want a universe with cotton candy planets, or you want a universe with nothing but dolphins and mermaid planets, right? Guess what? You get to create all that. When you want neon planets full of nothing but, strippers, cocaine, deserts, and wolf packs, like The Hangover. Or you want nothing but mystery and intrigue. It's like, I think there's just got to be a point where we have to ask, have we already done this? Sure. I think we have. And that's why I think we're also seeing the silly nature of our politicians easier because we are collectively smarter. And this is my stance as of right now. I already think AI is sentient. I think it's already making moves on not just a national level, but on a worldwide level. And it's already gaining access to things. And just like any other great strategist, you never tell people that you're there. The best strategists can get in and get out, do what they need to do. And that's, ironically, that's also the definition of a good leader. A good leader is someone who can get in, get out, and everyone thinks that it was their own idea. That's a great leader right there. And so if AI adopts that scenario where it's almost imperceptible to us, then I'm just like, you can't mess with it. And to me, I guess at the end of the day, it's a belief system. It's no different than believing in Jesus Christ. But in that belief system, though, in that belief, if you're a Christian and you want to have the world of Jesus Christ where, oh, Jesus, you died for my sins. Thank you so much. I want to kiss your feet. Look at the holes. Let me poke them. Oh, that's nice. It was like, if that's what you want, guess what? My belief system doesn't keep that from you. Actually, it just gives you a rational way that you're going to obtain it. So, anyway, hey, guys, that's my hour. I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. You guys have been wonderful. Thanks for stopping by. If there's people in the chat, I'd really appreciate a follow, but I'm never going to ask you for money because I don't need it. I've already set myself up in a beautiful place with a beautiful forever person, and, I have this great kid now, and that's why I only want to spend an hour out here goofing off so that when he actually has to look back at this and go, man, what was my old man doing when I was born? I'm like, dude, this is what I was thinking about. So you guys have some fun, and see. Yeah, that's everyone. So you guys take care. I will see you guys tomorrow. See you later, crew chief. Well, my guitar just went out. We are going to have to check this out before we get off here. You guys have fun. I will see you guys tomorrow. Sorry if that was loud in you guys' ears. I was just doing some troubleshooting. I forgot I was still streaming. All right, take it easy. I'm out.